Hello, and welcome back to the Thought Cloud podcast. Our goal with this conversation is to uncover a hidden gem that can inspire others along their academic journey. Our guest today is Ameya Jadhav. Ameya is going to be a freshman at Stanford in the fall, where he plans to study computer science and economics. He was named one of 25 by Atlanta Business Chronicle's 2021-25 under 25. Huge accomplishment. He was a 2022 Coca-Cola Scholar of the Year. Again, we're going to get into that. That is super cool. He was the state president of Georgia, Future Business Leaders of America. We're going to dig into everything he's done there, how exciting that was. And he is also the founder of the nonprofit Teach Technology organization. He's been doing that for quite some time. I'm excited to see what we can dig into with that one. He's built an app to detect early stage skin cancer. And he is a published researcher with his work titled Improving the Early Detection of Rare Craniofacial Genetic Disorders Through Convolutional Neural Networks and Machine Learning Using Facial Images. So that was a tongue twister, but he is going to break it down for us. There are so many more things he's done. He's really done a lot. I mean, this is a young person who's really applied themselves and found so much passion in all that he's done. And Ameya, thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to hear about your story.
Yeah, thank you, Oliver, for inviting me. And thanks for that very detailed introduction. I just want to say hello to everyone. I'm pretty excited to be talking about myself today.
Definitely. Well, we're excited to hear everything you got going on. So let's just kick it off. Let's kind of get a little background. So you're very driven. You've done a lot of things. I think probably more than most people older than you have done. And I say that as a compliment because it started at such a young age. This wasn't something we're doing, just during high school. I think that you've been the founder of Teach Technology for about 5 years now, if I'm not mistaken. So when did this passion, this drive to innovate, to inspire, to be involved in business and tech really start to click for you? How did your upbringing sort of affect that trajectory?
So this kind of started when I was younger, really in like my middle school years. I realized at a young age that hard work and really putting your mind to something and doing it is kind of the key to getting things done and being successful. So that realization, I think, is what kind of pushed me to be driven in a lot of activities that I'm currently still doing now. So my parents and my older sister, they were a huge inspiration to me, and they were constantly pushing me and helping me kind of be driven and to put my mind to things and do it. So in middle school, it started with just school, putting my minds to some courses, doing good on the tests. And I realized like doing that hard work and putting the effort, it truly leads to success. So I started a technology organization. I started other extracurricular activities, and I applied that same principle of using hard work, using success, using the time that I have and applying it into these endeavors. That's kind of where I kind of started this entire process. And that's, I think, been very fundamental to me even now by learning those principles at a very young age.
Definitely. No, I think that's great. And, some people, they just pick it up because I guess there's two ways that I look at this. You can kind of pick up that ethic because you've been shown from the bad example or you've been exposed to a good example. It sounds like your parents and your sister have been great examples. What about them kind of stood out to you in terms of, hey, I really see what they're doing. I hear what they're saying. I want to apply myself in this line of thinking. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so my sister, she's 4 years older than me. So there's kind of an age gap. So when I was in middle school, she was in high school. She was facing all these different things, college applications, all these rigorous courses, all the different things of high school. So through her, I was able to kind of see how she was able to implement like her hard work, implement and use effectively the time she had and be successful in her activities. So by looking at her, it kind of gave me like a glimpse into my future and how I could kind of apply the same principles she had and be successful myself as well. And my parents, they're also immigrants, and my dad actually runs his own company as well. So both of them have been inspirations to me because they also always put in hard work. They're always there to support me. And I realized that support and all the time that they put in, that's kind of also the key to my success as well. So those three individuals, my parents and my sister, have been amazing examples for me growing up. And I think that's contributed to this amazing upbringing, which has encouraged me to take some of these big initiatives.
Definitely, definitely. And where did this idea of business and tech, you have a great overlap of that, by the way.
Yeah.
I really like that. I mean, and at a young age too, that's what's really impressive. When did
Mhm.
these two things stick out to you as something or the things that you're passionate about?
That's actually a great question because initially I was actually mainly passionate about technology and computer science. My dad's an IT. My sister's also, she was a biomedical major, which is, I guess you call that sort of IT. So those inspirations were kind of how I got myself into computer science when I was younger. But this business interplay kind of came later on. The past 2 years with actually FBLA, that's actually kind of how I got into business. I found that side and explored that side. And I saw this interplay between business and technology. And that's kind of what transformed this interest of mine and made it more into this like business and this intersection with computer science.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's interesting to see that. Uh, well, one thing that comes to my mind immediately is when you're younger, you kind of, your brain's a little more malleable and it's easier to pick up
Mhm.
things. It's cool to see that the tech came first because oftentimes people will go into business first and maybe get discouraged by tech because it's foreign. They've already been applying time. So for you to look at it from the perspective of, oh, I'm passionate about this, but there's this whole other side, and let me explore this whole other side of it,
Mhm.
complementing.
Yeah.
I love that progression. So tell us about you being involved in FBLA. How did you start? First of all, what is FBLA for the listeners that aren't aware?
Yeah, so FBLA, it stands for Future Business Leaders of America. It's kind of like a student organization which has, we call them chapters. So they're just kind of the club level at different schools. They exist across the nation in the United States, as well as in several countries worldwide as well. So these members in FBLA, these are just students. They can be high school students, middle school students, and there's also collegiate divisions, as well as there's also like alumni division. So even any person of any age can be involved in FBLA. So this organization is mainly designed to uh, help students be involved in business and even IT careers. So they do this through conferences that they host across the nation, across states, across even local regions. And these conferences include a lot of competitions that people can participate in, all the way from testing to actually like giving presentations about topics, about projects. They have like networking sessions. They have speakers. Everything that a conference offers, this FBLA kind of offers this to like the student population.
Wow.
So it's usually like a year-long commitment, and there's activities throughout the year about business, about IT, about finance, accounting, kind of that area of business and stuff like that.
Definitely. That's great. I remember hearing about FBLA from a teacher of mine, and it wasn't as glamorized, or maybe the potential of what you were able to get from it wasn't necessarily recognized by the presentation of it. To hear everything you're saying, like, wow, who wouldn't want to take
Mhm.
advantage of that opportunity? How'd you get
Yeah.
involved in FBLA to begin with?
So it's quite an interesting story. So in middle school, that's actually when I first got into FBLA. And that was actually because the middle school, I went to a middle school in sixth grade, and then I went to a new middle school in seventh grade because it was actually brand new. So they opened a new one, and I got pushed over to that new middle school. So all the clubs, all the activities at that new middle school were not really established. And my older sister at the time was in FBLA. So I had an idea of what FBLA was. So the following year, when I was in eighth grade, I actually helped start the FBLA chapter at my middle school, and I was elected as the chapter president that year. So it was an exciting time. I got to know what FBLA really was. I led the chapter through some of our initial activities and initial recruitments, and that initial experience actually carried on throughout my high school years as well. I joined FBLA my freshman year, and I continued all 4 years. And every year, I got a little bit more involved, taking on some more competitions, taking on more responsibility, helping a lot of other members who were new to the chapter. That's kind of how I kind of grew during my time in FBLA across the last 5 years.
Definitely. Wow. I mean, so you've been president twice now. You were president in middle school and you were president in high school. High
Yeah.
school, you represented the state of Georgia.
Yes.
Now, in middle school, what kind of president would you consider yourself there? What was the
I
difference?
was, yeah, so I was the chapter president. So that was like just the president of my school.
Gotcha.
So there's school presidents, then these schools fall under regions. So then there'll be a region president, and then all the regions fall under the state organization. And I was the state president this past
Wow.
year.
Do you have to become a regional president before becoming a state president?
Not necessarily. A lot of times they don't. You can jump from like school to state, but there's an entire like application process, interviews, presentations, campaigning across the state, speeches. It's a very like it's a several month process, but that's kind of how the state officer teams are selected.
Right, right. So how did you decide that you wanted to take on that responsibility? Because you said it, 3 month process, multiple month
Mhm.
process. A lot of work goes into that. And no one just does that to pad a resume. You're gaining a lot from
Yeah.
the program. So what was it that really stood out to you to say, I want this responsibility here?
So that's actually a great question because that being a state officer, that initially came to me when I was actually in freshman year, first year or I guess first year of high school FBLA. We went to a conference. It's a state conference, so the entire state of Georgia usually comes. There's about like three to 4,000 students who come to that conference in downtown Atlanta. And at that conference, the state officers are the ones who kind of run that conference. And being a young freshman, I was very impressed with what they're doing, how they're running the conference, how they're speaking, how they're kind of just having fun and interacting and kind of having this amazing experience. And that I think was kind of what opened my eyes to being to this opportunity of like state office. And then as I went through my high school years, there are different teams every year. And I got to know a couple of them every year. And I kind of saw how this experience was helping them. And I got more involved in FBLA, like I mentioned, and I researched more about the experience, about what you had to do. And then finally, senior year, or I guess junior year, that second semester of junior year, that's really when I talked to my teachers at my school, and that's when I was like, I want to run for state office, and that's when I did the entire process.
Wow, that is unbelievable. Do you think that when you were a freshman, you saw yourself on that stage?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was envisioning, me up there on that stage, and I was like, that could be me one day.
I love that. I love that. So when you are running, you have other FBLA members at your school. And I'm curious about what the support is like there when you say to everybody, I want to run for president. My initial thought would be, well, somebody looks at you and says, well, hey, I can do that if he's going to do that. Did there become any sort of competition there, or was it all supportive? This is the guy that we want to be president. How did that run down?
Yeah, so how it works, at least in Georgia, different states might do it differently, but usually only the school can only nominate like one student to run. So initially there was some competition to like figure out who that one student would be. And that was like a decision for our teachers who like oversee the chapter. And they did like applications and they kind of just chose based on that. But after I was selected as the one to actually represent our school in the process, the chapter is actually pretty supportive. I'm actually the first person to run for my school because my high
Wow.
school is also new. So I had when I came in freshman year, we were actually the first class we were like the first freshman there. So it was a new process for a lot of people there, but they're very supportive. And a lot of them actually helped me through my campaign. During a campaign, we kind of have like a team that kind of works with the individual campaignee. And they help like graphic design. They help like make graphic design posts, and they help like our social media campaigns. They help actually campaigning in person at the conferences itself. So these are all members who are from my chapter who are actually being supportive. And I think without their support, it would have been very difficult for me to actually get to the position I was this past year.
Definitely, definitely. And what would you say for people that are maybe looking at you and aspiring to become, state president, for example? What allowed you to stand out in that initial nomination application for the teachers to be able to say, this is the person we want to choose?
Yeah, so I think um, more than just qualifications and like your resume or whatever you can tell the teachers, I think what they really liked is being able to see my drive and my passion for FBLA and how involved I was for like the last 3 years, even before being even asking to run. So them being able to kind of identify that this kid, he's always been there, he's there for meetings, he's there involved, he's there always to help out. And that I think put their mind to ease that I was not just doing this for like a resume item or just some line or some title, but I was actually doing it because it could be beneficial. It could be also impactful for me to make a difference in other people's lives, as well as like a positive thing for myself and our school as well. So just being able to show your passion, being able to show that you're actually genuinely interested in it, that was kind of, I think, what was successful for me.
Definitely. No, I think that's great. And, FBLA may not be for everybody. So,
Yeah.
I think the takeaway is that whatever it is you're doing, do what you're passionate about, because the
Mm-hmm.
consequences are only to your advantage at that point for digging in, being interested, showing up, seeing the impact you can make. And I love that, you found that and were able to do that. So as president of the state, what were you doing? What were your responsibilities? It sounds like a lot.
Yeah. So throughout the year, our responsibilities kind of shifted. So with COVID, a lot of schools in the state, they went online. The FBLA chapters were inactive. Members just didn't have like that incentive to be involved in the chapter if they're just sitting at home during online school. So membership numbers like plummeted that year. So
Mm.
this past year when I was president, this was kind of our first year back in person, I guess you could say. So a big responsibility of mine was actually to increase our membership number back to where it was. So usually we have members in the numbers of like 20,000 and 25,000 across the state. So, but during COVID, I think it was around like 10,000. So it was a huge plummet. So first couple months was just doing membership campaigns. So we offered incentives to school to reactivate. We offered them like free conference registrations if they hit this member thresholds. We offered them letters to actually incentivize members to come back. So all these different membership campaigns were kind of what we started with. And that's how we kind of raised our membership levels. And then later on throughout the year, it was mainly just doing conference programming. So speeches at these conferences, running workshops, running all these logistics for these conferences. We had about, I think, 13 conferences across the 8 months that I was, and then during the school year that I was the president. But in addition to that, we worked on competitive event guides and competitive event videos. So helping members and giving them resources to prepare for competitive events so they can be successful at any level of those competitions. So
Gotcha.
those are kind of like the major things that I hit.
Right. No, that's a lot. I mean, what a huge
Mm-hmm.
responsibility to take on. And, if anyone could do it, it was you. So what do you think you walked away with most from that experience being the president?
So I get this question a lot actually, and I think more than just the soft skills that I improved, like public speaking, presentation, more than that, I think the people I met and the connections I made were more important. More than just people like around me, I had a chance to meet people across the state, even across the nation. And I've actually met a lot of friends I have now, and they don't even live in Georgia. They're from across the nation, but we share the similar interests of being an FBLA. And that's kind of how I met a lot of like-minded people. And I think that's been the most impactful thing is the network and the friends I've met through this organization.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that. And yeah, I think that's great. And you've always taken on leadership roles.
Mm-hmm.
Another leadership role that you've taken on is founding your nonprofit. So Teach Technology Organization. You started this about 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
you weren't even in high school yet. Is that correct?
Yeah. I was in, I think it was seventh or eighth grade.
And you started a nonprofit. Like, wow, awesome.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can say they've done that in middle school. How did you decide that you wanted to start this? What was the inspiration for this undertaking?
Right. So the organization, I actually co-founded with my older sister. And at the time, we were both, I guess, into computer science and both into technology. And we were good with technology too. So at the time, actually, we were helping my grandparents a lot of like features on their phones, like, how to use Google Maps, how to FaceTime and stuff.
How
And
to
we
turn your ringer
realized,
on?
yeah, even that too. Um, we would think it's basic stuff, but like technology kind of the innovation outpaces what the older citizens can actually keep up with.
Mm,
So we saw that helping our grandparents with this technology, we realized that this need must be for other senior citizens as well. So we kind of came together. We started this organization. At the time, it was just us going to a couple of senior living facilities near us, volunteering time on the weekends, and having these senior citizens actually just come to us and just answering questions for them. Like, how do I get to the closest Walmart? We would show them on Google Maps, this is how you do it. How do I call my family? This is how you do it. So a lot of it was just that at the beginning. And that's kind of how we started it, is just helping bridge the digital divide and giving technology skills to people who really need it. And from there on, when my sister went to college, I'm executive director at the time, and I expanded it just from teaching seniors to also offering programming classes for students.
Oh.
Because in the area I live, Forsyth County in Georgia, there are CS classes, computer science classes in the high schools, but in middle schools, there's not a lot of computer science classes. So students who are interested in that, they have to look for things that are outside the schools. So I wanted to give these students an opportunity. That's why I started these programming classes. Very basic classes I started with just at local libraries. And it was a pretty good demand and there was some good interest. So that's kind of where I kind of took a foothold, and that's where we've grown the organization since. Now we offer a lot of different classes, a lot of different types of classes. We work with volunteers all across the world. We teach students all across the world, and it's been kind of exponential growth from there.
Wow, that is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. So will you continue to carry this out while you're at Stanford?
Yeah, the plan for now is to continue doing this, continue to grow it. Having a larger impact every year is kind of my mission, and that's what I plan to continue doing.
I love that. I love that for you. That is wonderful. So wonderful. So, and also too, just to touch on it, the idea that you've been with it for this long, again, goes back to the idea it's not just something you're doing to say you've done. You know, no one does something for 5+ years just to say they've done it. That's unbelievable. So big kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next thing you've done with tech, this is really cool. I have a brother who's going to be a dermatologist, so this stood out to me. It's an app to detect early stage skin cancer. So I'm assuming you can tell us about how it's working from a technical perspective, but some sort of image recognition there, using some.
Exactly.
How did you come to think of this app? What was your idea? Have you had family issues with skin cancer, or what stood out to you that I need to address this problem?
So I actually, to my knowledge, I don't think my family has skin cancer. I think, but I got into this because actually before making this app, I worked on a project, I think the year before that, where I actually developed this actual detection of that skin cancer. The software that my app uses was the project I did like the year before.
Gotcha.
And I've been involved in computer science. I've mentioned that. But in high school, I got into artificial intelligence. So it was kind of like the next step for me in computer science. So using image recognition, like you expertly mentioned.
No expert here.
Yeah. As well as like other methods as well. That's kind of what I got into high school. And I had a lot of this AI knowledge. And that's kind of, I wanted to use AI to kind of make an impact in society. So I was looking for medical diagnosis applications because that's like all the craze right now. Being able to use AI in medicine. And a lot of people say that's kind of going to be like the first impactful way that AI is being used is going to be in medicine, because it's used in radiology already, being able to identify like lung cancer, being able to identify other things in chest x-rays. Actually, recently in China, COVID, they're actually able to identify COVID through just chest x-rays without like COVID tests or anything using AI. So it was these inspirations which kind of led me on a thought process to figure out how I could use AI in a medical field, which isn't really worked on per se, but also something that could be important. And skin cancer is an issue that a lot of Americans, a lot of people around the world also have. And it's diagnosed visually, which is perfect for image recognition.
Right.
So that's kind of how I got into it. And
Definitely.
yeah,
No,
so
well, really quick question here is I've seen a lot of telemedicine apps where you send a picture into your doctor checks it, doctor says this. And that seems cool. I don't know if they're using AI in the apps or the apps I've heard of. I've never used one. But you're actually using that image recognition. And is that being sent to a doctor with a pre-diagnosis, or is that something for a patient to be self-checking themselves on? How does that work?
So the actual image recognition algorithm I built, it uses a data set of like 70,000 skin images, which are already identified by dermatologists. So like these like 25,000 are melanoma, these are not, blah, 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 like that. So using that data set, I was able to train a model which can actually take a new skin cancer image and kind of compare it of sorts to that data set and figure out if it would be melanoma or not melanoma, which is what my app does. So that software is used in the app. And when a user submits like a photo of their skin lesion, it runs the image through that software and it gives that user this prediction of like, this might be melanoma or this might not be melanoma. And and it actually saves that image in kind of a log inside the app itself, because we don't want the user just to take that prediction as like medical fact. We want them to actually show and confirm with a dermatologist.
Gotcha.
So more than just this app doesn't diagnose skin cancer, but it kind of gives a user kind of like a screening tool.
Better insight, right?
Yeah, better insight, exactly. So if they get like this might be melanoma, then like, oh, I might need to go see a dermatologist kind of in like the next week or so to figure out what this is.
Right.
So it gives them that peace of mind, and that's what they can use the actual images that are stored and then show their dermatologist when they have this appointment. And they can figure out that dermatologist can actually do that medical expert diagnosis there and figure out if it's actually or if it's actually melanoma.
Very cool. Are you working with dermatologists on this application? Like, are you partnering with anybody like that?
I didn't partner with anyone, but I spoke to some dermatologists to kind of get some feedback and figure out what could be most beneficial in the app. But it was just some quick calls I had with some dermatologists.
Yeah, well, I know plenty of dermatologists, so if you ever need to talk to more, feel free
Perfect.
to reach out. Are you still working on the app?
Not currently. There are some plans which, if I have some time, I'm going to get back to. I want to add a couple features, but I've been roughly maintaining it, making sure it still runs, but no big updates recently.
No big updates recently, but stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay
Good
tuned.
deal. Well, Amey, we're going to take a quick break and we are going to get back into this. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right, so we are back and we were just talking about the app that you've built. Really cool app.
Mhm.
And it came from this research that you had done. And I
Yeah.
think that was at GIT, right? Georgia Institute of Technology or Georgia Tech? Georgia Tech.
Yeah, the research wasn't with them. That's actually a separate research
Oh, that's a
experience I
whole
have.
separate research inquiry.
Yeah.
Oh, so you did this research on your own?
Yeah, it was a solo project.
No way. That's really cool. So where did you get all of these images from then? What was that data library like obtaining?
So that data is like one of the hardest things to find for a lot of these things. But luckily for skin cancer, there's actually online data sets that are available, because I guess a lot of labs across the world, I guess, use skin cancer to do different applications. So there were actually International Skin Imaging Collaboration Archive and actually Harvard. They actually have their own data sets for skin cancer. And I was able to use those because they're open source and publicly available. And then I was able to fix those data sets to kind of match into my application. And that's what I pulled the data from.
Very cool. Wow. And so when did you when did you first develop the skill set for, running these sort of algorithms? What project did that stem from?
So that project was actually my publication. So improving the detection of rare craniofacial genetic disorders through convolutional neural networks and machine learning using facial images. So that
Gotcha.
was my first project in AI, or in AI medical diagnosis area. So kind of as a timeline, that was my first project. The next year I did this skin cancer project. And then the year after that, I built the app using that skin cancer project.
Very cool. Very cool. So now getting involved in this research, improving the early detection of rare craniofacial genetic disorders, where did you decide, when, how, what, etc. did you decide to do to get involved in this? Why did this stick out to you?
So this was again just like rare craniofacial genetic disorders. These include things like Down syndrome, Williams syndrome, and that kind of range. Anything that can be uh, identified through facial features. That's what craniofacial means. So any genetic disorders that have some facial features, because my model or my algorithm used like facial features to actually identify these disorders. So this entire idea kind of came from just being able to use AI and use it in areas where it's not being used and it's kind of more rare, because you won't find a lot of people researching about Williams syndrome and using AI for Williams syndrome because it's a very rare genetic disorder.
What
That's
is
why
Williams syndrome?
it's sort of like it's like Down syndrome, but it's in the same like kind of family of disorders, I guess. But Down syndrome is more like, I guess I don't want to say popular, but more research, more well known. But there's other ones like Williams syndrome, which is it has. I'm not the most expert medical person on this, but it has like similar, I think, genetic causes, but it's just less well known. So that's why I wanted to focus on those disorders.
Gotcha. How were you exposed to the opportunity to get involved in this? Was it an application, cold email? What was that like?
This was really just me doing just online searches. So I was just like trying to find where I could use my skills. And I saw a lot of things about Down syndrome, and I was like thinking on how I could use AI in those areas. But I saw AI is being used in Down syndrome a lot. So I tried looking for like rarer disorders, and that's how I stumbled upon Williams syndrome. And then through a lot of research about Williams syndrome, a lot of research about even Down syndrome, that's where I found this entire like section of like rare craniofacial and genetic disorders. And that's how I kind of got into that.
I see. And you didn't have the AI experience prior to this, or did you?
Uh, I think I like just learned it then because this was like my very first project in that experience.
Huh?
So I think just a couple months before starting this project, that's kind of when I got into AI and I was building the skill set for image recognition.
Very cool. Very cool. So you were able to kind of identify based off the facial structures whether or not somebody had Williams syndrome. How
Mhm.
accurate was that model? If you had a million faces, let's say 100, so we have a percentage number, what percentage of accuracy was that?
I see. I feel. I remember it was somewhere around like top three cat or top three accuracy was about I think 80 something percent.
Hmm.
So out of 100 images, we would expect about 80 of those to be accurately classified.
Wow.
But yeah, that came because like the data set I actually had, or the data set I built my data set because there's not like a data set available about these rare craniofacial genetic disorders. So what I did is I actually went on YouTube. I found videos about like there's like interviews about people with like Williams syndrome and things like that. So I found like hundreds of these YouTube videos, and I built a script to actually go through these YouTube videos and grab facial images and
No
make a
way.
data set from that.
That is really
So
cool. That's like web
yeah,
scraping on roids. Like
yeah,
that's sweet.
web scraping. Yeah, exactly.
That is
That's
super
why.
cool.
Yeah. So the data set I wouldn't say was the most perfect thing, but I
Mhm.
worked with what I got, and that's kind of the accuracy I got.
Definitely. And gosh, I'm being flooded with questions right now. The the first one, I guess, I want to talk a little bit about what it's like to build an image recognition model, from a
Hmm.
simple perspective, because for some that maybe haven't been exposed to it, it might seem a little complex, but break that down for us in terms of what does it take to actually run a model? What does that look like?
Hmm. Okay. So image recognition algorithms, they work pretty much identically, but on a like a basic level of how your mind looks at images. So your brain will identify. Let's talk about like faces or faces. Your brain will identify faces based on features, like you see eyes and then like a nose, and the eyes are like this distance apart, the nose this distance apart, like facial structure. So all these different features. That's how your brain is identifying these. Like, hey, that's a face, or hey, that's a dog. Um, we're not we don't like recognize that we're identifying these features, but they happen in our brain. So image recognition is being able to just extract that same methodology and use it to identify features. So with this project with facial features, it was again just the data set that I had from the YouTube images. I don't recall how many thousands of images, but I think it was, let's say 10,000 images. So using that 10,000 images, I build a model, and a model, it's a lot of code, a lot of lines of code, using a lot of different libraries, a lot of different packages, a lot of different things in the machine learning sphere.
Mm-hmm.
Using all that, I build a model, and that model kind of takes this data set, it takes all these images, and then it tries finding patterns, tries finding features that maybe us as humans, we can't immediately recognize, but the computer can pick up on those because it analyzes each of these images over time.
Gotcha. And so did you use a library or a package for that recognition software in the sense of saying, this is a face and this is how far apart the eyes are, or did you have to write all of those lines of code yourself?
So that's the beauty of AI, is that it learns itself. So I just give it the data set. I give it kind of like a structure. So if you think of like Legos, you could build like a house. I guess this might be a bad analogy, but we'll find out in a minute. We'll build like a house with Legos. And then we give that house to this, we just give the house, we show it images of like houses that are furnished. And then our, I guess, model could figure out how to furnish that house automatically. So we don't have to say like, this is a couch, this is like a table. It'll find that out itself, make those associations, and do it itself.
Gotcha. So you essentially said to the algorithm, this is a face, and I'm going to give you a bunch of other faces. Or they didn't even know it was a face to begin with.
Yeah, they didn't know it was a face to begin with. So yeah, I think that Lego analogy wasn't good. But pretty much I gave it like a structure model. So I was like, here's a machine learning model. There's nothing, it's not trained on anything. It's just kind of like a template.
Mm-hmm.
And here's your data. I don't tell it it's a face. I don't tell it what it is, but it just goes to that data, and then it can make those associations itself. So I don't think the computer knows that's a face, but they just know like, this is what you gave me the data, and this is what I'm seeing now.
Right. And so there's, from my understanding, two types of machine learning. There's supervised and unsupervised. Were you using a supervised model or an unsupervised model?
Wow, so I guess we have a machine learning expert here.
No, I'm not no expert. I'm an armchair machine learner.
So I was using supervised machine learning because with supervised, you use labels. So my data set actually had labels with it. So like an image of an individual with Down syndrome, we would say, here's your image, and this person has Down syndrome. So that's a label, like actually being able to know what that image is. So that was supervised learning that I used.
I understand. Okay, so then you were able to feed it into this model, and from the other images, it was able to discern these patterns thereafter.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool. And did it work across different age groups? Did you have a set age range?
So that was one of my goals, is to make this model generalizable, meaning it could be applied to people of all types, ages, genders, like ethnicities. Mm-hmm. So there was a limitation about the YouTube videos, but when I was finding YouTube videos, I tried to find it across a age group, like different ages. So I would say the model works good for different ages, but without like rigorous testing of like actual individuals across age spans, there's no way to ascertain for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I understand too, also in some of the different sort of genetic disorders that occur, some developments may become more pronounced later in life, which was a little interesting. That's why I asked that question. Just curious, but really cool. You're able to kind of draw from different data sets. And taking a step back from this cool discussion, we could talk all day on this, but how did you get involved with this principal investigator or research advisor? Because you were working under the university, correct?
Yeah, not for this project, but yeah, I do work with Georgia Tech for another lab.
Oh, I must be confusing. I apologize. So this was also an independent research project.
Yes.
So you had an independent research project for genetic disorders, and an independent research project for
Skin
skin
cancer.
detection. Wow,
Yeah.
very cool. Very cool for you to be that self-driven. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really cool. So then I guess tell us a little bit about that. What was it like working at the university? How did you get involved in that position?
Yeah, so I work with a lab at Georgia Tech, and I actually got involved by just cold emailing. I was actually surprised that worked, but I emailed about like I would say like 70 professors at Georgia Tech, and a couple got back to me. And the one I work with now, he got back to me. I actually sent him actually this paper in my paper about skin cancer too, and he was impressed with that. And that's kind of how that connection started, and then that's how I joined his lab as well.
Very cool. What have you been doing at that lab?
So that lab, it's technologies and international development. So we apply technology and computer science towards developments in foreign countries. So their kind of, I guess, flagship, their main project that we work on is building a system that can, or building like, I guess, a software website that can identify or that can aggregate social media channels to help identify disinformation or misinformation in our emerging democracies or fake news.
Wow.
So that's a lot of big words, but essentially what it does is, um, in, for example, Myanmar's recent election or Ethiopia's recent election, this software was used alongside our partner, the Carter Center, Jimmy Carter's organization. So there's a team in those countries that use the software, and they set the software to like monitor specific social media channels. So like these Twitter accounts, these Facebook accounts, these Instagram accounts, so on and so forth across the platforms. And our software will take posts from these accounts that they want to monitor, and it'll put it into a single like website, single software,
Mm-hmm.
where this team can actually go through, read these posts, verify them, and if there's ones that they can identify as being misinformation or disinformation, they'll flag it, and then that will be pushed either for removal or for other action.
Wow.
So,
Hey, question for you on that, because that's interesting. Seems like in a lot of how would you say disputes or conflicts when it comes to disinformation, misinformation, we've seen a lot of just two-sided, you know, sort of this polar ecosystem where one side is taking the perspective and leaving out one component, and
mhm.
the other side is taking a perspective and leaving out another component. So, for whatever reason, probably to their own selfish advantage. But what do you do when you have this sort of stalemate? Two sides that are leaving out different parameters of the event itself.
Uh, Usually, I haven't been a tracker myself, so I don't actually know exactly what they do in those scenarios. But usually, what they're looking for mainly is like dangerous speech or hate speech or things that could be impactful to these elections.
Hmm.
So, if someone's like saying the election day is January 1st, but it's actually on the 2nd, or it was actually on like the December 31st, that would be misinformation that could be
See.
impactful to the election, and that would be something that they would flag and look at,
Interesting.
or yeah, things like that.
Gosh,
um yeah.
very cool. Very cool. Well, that's awesome. You've been able to immerse yourself in so many different research projects, and be exposed to so much. That's really cool. And
Mhm.
it's to no surprise that you were named Atlanta Business Chronicle's 2021 25 under 25. Tell us
Mhm.
about the importance of this award, because this is really cool.
Yeah, so the 25 under 25 by Atlanta Business Chronicle, they name 25 young like innovators, entrepreneurs, people in like the technology and like business field who are doing important things, I guess you could say. So they highlight not only the individuals, but also the work they're doing. So I was selected for this list actually because of my work with my nonprofit technology organization. So I think I was nominated by a lot of the libraries I work with. Those staff there nominated me for this award. And that has been a great experience. I've actually been able to see kind of what other people my age and around my age have been doing with their own companies, their own organizations, and their own communities. And that's been great to see, and also great to actually get some recognition for not only myself, but actually the work we do with our organization. It helps grow it, helps be more impactful, and kind of helps get more volunteers and students as well.
Definitely. No, that's wonderful. That is a huge accomplishment. I saw in the post that you made of that, one of your buddies commented, Forbes 30 under 30 next. So we're rooting you on for that. You're very much on your way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tell us about the Coca-Cola Scholar of the Year. So this is a post that kind of, I see some individuals either put on their headline or make a post about it right around, college application, acceptance times. This is a big award. I mean, how do you get involved in this? It's an application, right?
Yeah. So there's multiple rounds, but the first round is an initial application. So there's an application, and then I think you become a semifinalist, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then another application, and from there they select regional finalists. So finalists in my region, that was like Georgia and some surrounding states as well. And then from there, there's applications and interviews. And from there, those are actually the scholars that are selected. So there's 150 scholars that are selected every year. And I was one of the 150.
That is unbelievable. And you said how many applied? Over 49,000?
Yeah, 49,000.
Wow, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah. Congratulations on that. And they give a great scholarship, right?
Yes, it's 20,000 per scholar.
And wherever you end up going, it's not only to one place.
No, any US institute, any US university, you can use it there.
So you're going to definitely be using that at Stanford. That is awesome. Yeah. That's wonderful. So tell us about Stanford. This is a huge accomplishment for you to get in there. What are you most looking forward to about being on campus and being in that culture?
Yeah, so Stanford was my actually number one choice for computer science school. And I visited actually before I applied, and I love the campus. It's very beautiful. The vibe is amazing there. But I think the best thing I'm looking forward to is the like-minded people that will be there with me. So people with, like, I guess, similar background, but at least the same interests, same aspirations. And having that community, I think, would be extremely beneficial. If I wanted to do anything, if I wanted to do any successes, things like that, which can be helpful. So just having that community and then meeting people who have similar interests to me, that's, I think, the biggest thing I'm excited about.
100%. Well, you're the right spot for that. Of the Stanford kids I've spoken to, they're all excited about that. That is like the one thing that they say. I have friends at Stanford and they can't get enough of it. So gosh, you're going to just dig in and enjoy that. Would you say there's anything that you're a little, I wouldn't say nervous, but apprehensive or uncertain about?
Yes, there's a lot, but I think the biggest thing is actually the move. So I'm from Georgia. Georgia is like literally the opposite side of the country. So I have to move across the country to go to California for Stanford. And the biggest thing I'm apprehensive about is the big move. I've lived actually where I live for most of my life, I think, besides like maybe a year or two. So almost like 16, 17 years here. So I know everything around me, but going to a new place like Stanford, different culture, different people, different weather, different time zone even, it's going to be a big move. And that's kind of, I think, the most apprehensive thing about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I went to Berkeley, and I live in Reno, Nevada, so that's 4 hours away drive kind of deal. And even that move was a little bit like, I was apprehensive about that move because it was a completely different area that you have to get used to, and you do get used to it. And like you said it best, Stanford's just got a wonderful culture, wonderful campus, wonderful environment, a lot of like-minded people. You're going to feel right at home. I'm super excited for you. And you said it was your top choice for computer science. Were you choosing between other schools?
I applied to a lot of other computer science schools, but I knew if I got into Stanford, that's where I'd want to go. So as soon as I got in, I committed to Stanford.
100%. Did you do the early action?
I applied regular, actually, because there's like other universities I wanted to apply to besides Stanford too. So if I applied to early, I couldn't have applied to them early as well.
Right.
So that's why I did regular for Stanford.
I see. Gotcha. Well, it paid off. And what do you wish you knew before the application process?
Uh, I think what I wanted to know is how long it would have taken.
Hmm.
Um, I was kind of told it would take a long time, but I don't think I believed it. And a lot of the a lot of the applications I didn't do them last minute, but I did them with like a couple of weeks to spare to the deadline.
Mhm.
And I wish like I might have spent a little bit more time doing research, maybe even doing a lot of campus visits too. So if anyone's listening to this and they're going to be applying, make sure you start early and make sure you take your time in that process.
That's
Yeah.
great advice. I was just speaking with somebody who they got into Cornell, but they said they finished their application in one day. They started in
Wow.
one day. I was
Wow.
like, unbelievable. The guts to do that. That's awesome. But yeah, no, I would err on the side of giving yourself enough time. That individual said definitely don't do what I did. So that is funnier than heck. But good stuff. Yeah, take your time. Well, Amay, we're gonna get into the rapid fire round and close this out here.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna shoot at you, and you are gonna give me whatever comes to mind. I don't know how much you've looked over these, but nonetheless, let's start it off. So, what is your favorite book?
I would say right now it's the Kite Runner. And that's probably because that's the most recent book I read.
I've heard a lot about the Kite Runner, but I can't put a finger on what it's about.
It's about like two boys. They're in Afghanistan, and they kind of grow up. And one of them, not the, I'm not gonna spoil the plot too much, but one of them kind of wrongs the other one, and the other dies. And this other guy grows up. He moves to the United States, and then he goes on a path to actually kind of like make up for his mistakes when he was younger. It's
Wow.
all about like growing up. It's all about maturing, and
Hmm.
it's a very, very good book.
I like that. I like that. Who was your favorite teacher and what grade was that?
My favorite teacher was my computer science teacher. He taught me sophomore and junior year. So I had the opportunity of having him twice. He was also my FBLA like advisor, and he's
Oh,
kind of
cool.
the one who was my advisor when I was a state president. So I had a lot to do with him. That's why definitely favorite teacher. And favorite grade, uh, maybe senior year actually. Even though college applications, second
Hmm.
semester senior year was pretty fun.
That's cool. That's really cool. What would you say the most stressful part of being a student is day in and day out?
I would say managing time effectively.
Mhm.
There are like some times where I would have like a plan for the day. Now I would go to school and I find out like I have to do this today or this is due tomorrow, and that would mess up my plan for the day. So it's always like making sure you do things early. Again, make sure you do things early, having a lot of time. But I would say I'm like kind of a procrastinator, so that definitely didn't help. But yeah, just managing time and having time manager is always the stressful things.
Yeah, definitely. Who is your favorite person that you've ever studied with?
So I actually like to study alone. When it's quiet, that's usually when I work best. That's when my mind can like think and absorb things. So I actually don't know if I've ever studied with anyone.
Maybe let's phrase it differently. Instead of studying, and I appreciate that. I was more of an individual studier myself, but in the sense of talking about
Mhm.
what you have to learn, maybe it's not, oh, I'm studying for this test, but working through something or asking questions, bouncing ideas off of who is that person?
It's usually people who are. I have kind of like this friend group. We talk about classes. We talk about things that happen. So it's usually them. I talk with them if we want to talk about like project ideas or bounce things off of. But I've been lucky to have those people at least in a lot of classes I've taken high school year. At least one person out of that group has been in that class. So it's usually whoever's in that class with me. I reach out to them and we talk about it.
Love it. I love it. I love it. What would you say the most meaningful way for students to help each other is?
Um, I would say just sharing opportunities because there's a lot of opportunities in the world, but the biggest thing is that not everyone knows about them. So if you find out about something which maybe not might not fit you, but you know someone who would be perfect for that, just share that with them and they could use the opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great answer. This is a big one. This is a big one. So, what is your biggest hope to accomplish during your time on Earth?
Yeah, that's a very deep question too. um, I I like to think anything that I do that would leave an impact, like a societal impact. So things, for example, like Alexander Graham Bell, he made the phone, and that revolutionized how we kind of talk, how we interact, how everything really works. So something like that, which can help human civilization not only grow, but kind of, I guess, be more efficient, be better, I guess. I don't know how
Right.
to say it, but yeah, it's something
Right.
that's really impactful.
Definitely. No, I love that. I love that. And what would you say the top piece of advice for those who are early in their educational journey would be?
If you're still early in your journey, I would say to explore different things. You could find like a couple areas you're interested in if you're looking for like a career path or path for college, and just take some time exploring them. Like join some clubs, take some courses, maybe kind of do some extracurricular activities with them, and just see what you like. And I think that's like probably the best thing you could do if you're still early in your educational journey.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Well, and coming from you as well, you've taken so many online courses just to supplement your current knowledge base.
Mhm.
Super cool looking into everything that you've done, be it through, I think it was Wharton, I think it was Microsoft. I don't know if you took any of those. Oh, you did an MIT course as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were just all over it. I loved it. It was great to see that. Well, Amay, you are so full of great information. I loved
Mhm.
hearing about your story. It's been such a pleasure having you on here. Where can people follow the work you are doing and learn more about what you're up to?
The best place would be my LinkedIn. I actually am pretty active on there and I post a lot of the stuff I do. So if you want to follow me, you could check out my LinkedIn and continue looking there.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. This has
Yeah.
been a real pleasure, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Oliver, for having me. And this has been pretty fun too.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.